another guy I worked with for a long time, Jimmy Moore. He's with Bold Racing. They do side-by-side racing, mostly desert. So, I went out to Vegas to Reno with a huge off-road race out in, out in Nevada. I did that with him for 2 years. And I remember the first year I was really learning. I'd done a couple podcasts. I still didn't really know what I was talking about. And he took me out there and I was like, man, what does it take to get into this race? He's like, oh, it's not bad. And I said, well, tell me about it. And I said, I want to know what's the win? What do you win? You cross the finish line. What do you get?
Yeah.
He said, well, let's just go back. He said, I got about $70,000 invested in my car and it's barely competitive. I got like a $75,000 truck to pull my $80,000 trailer.
Yeah.
And, I got my crew with me and I got to feed them and put them in a room for the week. And I got all my tools. Who knows how many $1,000 in tools. I got entry fees. It's like, I don't know, $2,500, $3,500, $4,500 in entry fees for this race. He said, I'll run it. It'll take us 20 hours to do it. And I'll finish and I'll get like a button, like a really, really nice button if I win. I'm like, oh, well, a button. Yeah. So not much. You don't win much in this case.
But it's a nice button.
It's a super nice button. Hey, it's Swahn is my son here.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for joining me, Josh.
No, thank you. You're probably seeing what's still a picture of my son, or are you seeing video right now?
I see your son. He looks pretty cute. I see it says bread on the side.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. COVID has changed things so much. I had to change my computer to be his virtual learning tool.
I gotcha.
Let's try this instead.
Perfect.
All right. Well, how's it going?
Josh Wiese?
Yeah, Wiese. That's right.
Yeah, I listened to some of your podcasts. I got to admit, though, I did not do my full due diligence. You have like 200 and some episodes. I did not listen to all of them.
You haven't listened to all of them? Come on now.
Not yet, anyways.
I haven't either, quite honestly.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you listened to them at least the first time initially, and then you have to do the editing work. So
yeah. Early on, you're right. I produced about 228 episodes over the course of a few years, and early on, and maybe the first 30 episodes, I edit everything, and then I'd listen to the whole thing over again, and then publish it, and then I changed to like, I'm just gonna publish it and then listen to it. And then maybe I'll go back and edit. And then later on, I honestly, maybe the last, I don't know, 200 episodes. I don't know what it was, the last 150 episodes. I never listened to them again. Yeah. So I just put them out in the world and, moved on, worked on the next show.
See, for me, I don't really take things out. I just make sure that, we paused one time before. So I just, splice that together or intro and I cut out the end part and that's about it. But when I do a lot of multicam feeds when I'm in person with somebody. We'll have cameras, so I have to go through and manually switch the camera feeds for 2 hours of video.
Yeah.
Lately, I've been using, since I started, I've been using DaVinci Resolve, which is a free program, and it's been lagging like crazy. Sometimes I'm just so frustrated with it, but I can't pay for software right now.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I just got to figure out the correct settings, and I think it works fine. I've been doing it for about 20 episodes. It's just wrong settings right now somehow.
Yeah, well, that's a good deal.
But,
well, I'm excited to be here. I know it took a little bit to make it all happen, but we're here. We're making it happen now, so I'm excited.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about your history and what you've we've already said about 200 episodes or so. I think 28 is the number that I saw.
Yeah, 228. That's it. Yep.
And you had a show called the Sponsored Rider Club Podcast. And
yeah. I'll kind of give you some context. I mean, outside of that show, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm obviously a dad. If you saw from the beginning, right? I'm using my computer turned into my son's computer, and now I'm borrowing it back again. But I got 2 kids, 2 boys, 5 and 7 years old. My wife has been married a little over 10 years now. I got just like many people out there, kind of the dual path thing going on where I've got a side hustle and then my day job. My day job right now, I'm managing proving grounds, so vehicle proving grounds out in Marshall, Michigan. You might have heard of it before. You're a
Yeah.
Michigander,
Oh yeah,
but
sounds like a fun place to go.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's Eaton. They do superchargers and valve train components, differentials, things like that. So I've been leading the proving grounds there for the past 2.5 years, and it's a pretty cool place. We got a lot of pretty neat things. So there's a test lab side, that has dynamometers and all sorts of different test equipment, and then the track side, so on-road, off-road track, and we're actually setting up right now for a autocross activity that's going to be happening on Wednesday. So I'm pretty excited about that. I got to run the course real quick and make sure it's good and it's solid.
You set up those cones with a slalom section and braking sections.
Yeah, exactly. I think this course may even set up for about 40 or 45-second runs with a good driver. Not me, right? I'm not really a good driver. I just get out there and run it. But either way, a little bit about me. That's my day job. And then, I did my company is called Impact Fuel. Impact Fuel, it started as a kind of a charity organization where I took off-road miles that people would put online. So like, I did a 50-mile run in my quad, right? And then they would post up something on social media, and I would convert that to a donation to a charity each month.
Okay.
So I did that for I can't remember now, maybe a year and a half. And then during that, I started the podcast, Sponsored Rider Club podcast. It's all about motorsports marketing and sponsorship, trying to help people get started, get to the next level, whatever it is. The struggle, right? You showed me your background video, right? And I watched that, and you talked about the struggles of financially being able to go out there and race. And there's different levels of challenge associated with that as you step up. The financial challenges get bigger. So, what was happening is people were reaching out to me, and they were saying, "Oh, Impact Fuel, why don't you give me a bunch of money? And you could sponsor me. I'll put a small sticker underneath my wheel well, and just give me like $1,000." I'm like, well, I mean, okay, that's cool that you want that from me, but I'm like this big of a company,
right?
That would blow out my marketing budget. I have people reaching out to me. It's called Impact Fuel, right? It's a pun, right? It's a play off of impactful.
Yeah.
And they'd say, "Oh, I love your fuel. I'd like to run your fuel. If you could just give me some fuel." I'm like, no, I don't actually produce fuel. I mean, have you even done any research? So that was part of it. And a couple of people that I was working with, they said, "Man, it would be nice if there's a resource out there. We don't know where to go to get information about sponsorship stuff. We don't know where to get coaching at." So I started the show kind of randomly. In my first episode, I accidentally released it. I did not mean to. I was still learning how these things worked, and I released it way early, and it did okay. So I just kept going from there. I was dedicated to doing one a week, and then I ended up turning it into 6 a month.
Okay.
I did six shows a month from December of 2016 until May of 2018.
Yeah.
May of 2020. So yeah, 220 episodes. I had almost 100,000 downloads. I'm close.
That's a lot.
It's okay, right? Considering the kind of the niche that it is as a podcast. Some podcasts out there, they'll get that in in one show, but it was a lot of fun and impacted a lot of people. A lot of people ask me, and you're curious too, why did I stop? Why did I stop doing the show? And there's a couple of reasons. I actually did a whole show on it, right?
Yeah.
So we could spend the rest of this time just talking about why I stopped. But the main thing was COVID hit. I've been doing the show for a while, and I was exhausted, burned out. I mean, people were asking me like, "Are you okay?" I remember my mom watched one of my live shows, because I do the live Facebook Live stuff too. And she's like, you look really tired. I'm like, do I?
I can barely see out of my eyes.
Yeah. So, and I was gaining weight and getting unhealthy, and I was super stressed, and, blood pressure going up, all those things. And my job at work, as a site leader, I had a lot of responsibilities for COVID that kind of stacked on top of what I normally did. And it was just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of stress. So I said, you know what, I need to realign here for a minute, take a break. And it's been super sad, to not do the show, it became a big part of me, right? I mean, here's my logo, right? It's still a big part of me.
Yeah.
But it's been refreshing to take a break for a minute and just kind of focus on me. I've, lost some weight. I'm in phenomenal shape right now, and that was not the case back in May. I'm sleeping more. So either way, just refocusing. I'm not done. I'm not done, but the break has been much needed.
That's good. Sometimes you got to take a step back and reassess what's important to you, or maybe move in a different direction. I heard you alluded to maybe starting a different show at some point.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I've got a couple ideas. I actually have a website that I've kind of started, and I've got, kind of a list of shows that I could do. But no, I already own the rights to Motor Life podcast. That's one that I have. Like I said, I know what to do, and it's just a matter of if and when I'm going to do it. So I've even got some social media presence out there already, just ready to go. Because one of my plans was I was going to transition right into that.
Yeah.
And just make it happen. The second thing is I got into RC cars.
Yeah.
Are
little
RC crawler
electric
trucks.
cars or
Yeah.
gas?
They're electric. Yeah. I have had the nitro fuel ones before, and you just got to have a lot more patience to tune them. Like it's, especially in Michigan, right? You tune it for, 52 degrees. Next day it's 95. So you got to retune it, and next day it's 38. You got to tune it again. It's incredible. But no, little electric crawlers. They're like rock crawlers, and that they're scale. So part of it is to make them look pretty realistic. And it's the weirdest thing, but I'll build them and I get all intricate, and it's been calming, relaxing, stress reliever.
It's good, and it's a relatively cheap hobby versus racing cars, right?
Yeah, like I know I was watching your other video that you're talking. It was from, I think, 2017.
Yeah, it was a few years ago.
Yeah, but you were talking about just the cost of racing and saying, oh yeah, I hear people talk about their kids' hockey. Like, yeah, that's expensive. That's like one of my tires. I have to get a tire every race. And yeah, so I used to be, big into the off-roading and stuff, and I guess I still am. You might be able to see
I see the truck in the background there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my picture, my Ford Raptor. But beyond that, I got my helmet too.
Oh, nice.
So I used to be big into ATVs and snowmobiles and all that stuff, and that gets expensive. And I'm not racing, right? Like, ooh, I gotta get a new set of tires next year, right? And not like I have to get 5 new sets of tires to practice this weekend.
Right. Yeah. It's
a little different story.
So you helped, or it seems like you maybe have helped some other people get some sponsorship in the past. I actually had 20 sponsors, so I know a bit about the struggles of sponsorship and getting, pleasing the sponsors and maintaining and renewing sponsorship. It's a full-time job if you want to do it professionally. You have to dedicate everything to it. And making sure your proposals are spot on and everything. It's just, I could never find enough money to go racing full time. It was, I had my pro race license. I've been racing an expert WERA motorcycle road racing for many years. I was fast enough to qualify for pro racing the first year I raced as a novice. So I have the speed. It's just that I don't have the money. And, I played roller hockey for many years because hockey was too expensive. So I don't come from a rich family. And it's all on me. My parents help out when they can, but they're not made of money. They can't write $100,000 check for me to go racing.
Right.
Job. So I don't expect them to. I want to create it on my own. And I wasn't ultimately able to do that. I stepped back from racing after a bad crash in 2015 and kind of ran out of money. And right now I'm building my business to help fund that so I can not have to rely on sponsorship alone. Sponsorship is great, but there are veterans, 10-year-old veterans who are in the top class of Superbike who the sponsor backed out and now they're done racing.
That's it.
Yeah. So I don't want to be in that position. I want to make my own way kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's a classic story. It's unfortunate that it happens as much as it does, it's such a fun thing to do, you know, racing. I mean, I talked about autocross, right? That's a blast.
Yeah.
To get a good fully set up autocross car though, you're getting deep into some cash. And like what you just talked about to run some of these programs, I mean, yeah, if you're doing grassroots ATV stuff, maybe you can get into that for 20, 30K a year.
Yeah.
But if you're racing at a higher level and, you know, with a, you know, complicated piece of machinery, price adds up quick. I remember I was interviewing Megan Meyer. She does NHRA top
Yeah.
alcohol, and she talked about how many spark plugs she goes through, because every pass the engine basically gets a rebuild. And you know, you don't think about that. Oh yeah, you got to throw a new set of plugs in there. Now one of her sponsors is NGK. Oh, that's great. But I think we did the math on the show, and it's like $15,000 a year in just plugs.
Wow.
I mean, like, what is
That's
that?
craziness. Yeah.
And for most people, right, plugs, that's just a thing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you replace them at 80,000 miles on your passenger car. Maybe 100. Well, probably most people go way further than that.
Right.
But you don't think about that as being a real expense.
No,
And
it's just a small consumable, but if you're doing those kind of passes, everything's a consumable.
right, right. So that's just it's incredible when you think about the scale. Another guy I worked with for a long time, Jimmy Moore, he's with Bold Racing. They do side-by-side racing, mostly desert. So, um, you know, I went out to Vegas to Reno with a huge off-road race out in, you know, out in Nevada. I did that with him for 2 years. And I remember the first year I was really learning. I'd done a couple podcasts. I still didn't really know what I was talking about. And he took me out there, and I was like, man, what does it take to get into this race? He's like, oh, you know, it's not bad. And I said, well, tell me about it. And I said, I want to know what's the win? What do you win? You cross the finish line. What do you get?
Yeah.
He said, well, let's just go back. He said, I got about $70,000 invested in my car, and it's barely competitive. You know, I got like a $75,000 truck to pull my $80,000 trailer.
Yeah.
And, you know, I got my crew with me, and I got to feed them and put them in a room for the week. And I got all my tools. Who knows how many $1,000 in tools. I got entry fees. It's like, I don't know, $2,500, $3,500, $4,500 in entry fees for this race. He said, I'll run it. You know, it'll take us 20 hours to do it. And I'll finish, and I'll get like a button, like a really, really nice button if I win. I'm like, oh, well, a button. Yeah. So not much. You don't win much in this case. And
But it's a nice button.
it's a super nice button. But you know, just when you do that and you talk about this, and at his level, you know, he was competitive, right? But compared to some of the other race programs, you know, he was still just getting started and just kind of breaking into those things. And he had invested all of that money to really just get to the point of being competitive.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's when you hope that you get picked up by the bigger names, and then you
right.
can actually have the best equipment and have the best crew and have a plane ticket to the event, that kind of thing.
Right.
It make it easier on you.
Yeah. So that it becomes a requirement, you know, unless you can self-fund, which some people can, right? And some people do come from a line of either money or racing families that have built that up over time. Some people are able to build it on their own.
Yeah.
But it's very challenging. There's very few people that can operate without, you know, a healthy set of sponsors. And, you know, like you said, you become reliant on that. And if someone backs out, it's a big challenge. You know, right now, I know one of the questions that, you know, we were going to talk about at some point during this show is the future and the current state of sponsorship. And, you know, quite honestly, towards the, right when COVID was hitting the United States, there was a bunch of people who just pulled out, right?
Oh,
They
yeah.
said, I cannot cover this marketing program right now. I know I cannot do it. Let's pull back. You know, I had my show, I had already announced I was ending at this time, but people were basically saying, oh, I'm glad, because like it's sketchy sometimes trying to figure out how you're gonna, you know, make payroll and also fund a racing program.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big expense, and a lot of companies just can't afford that. I heard it was, I think, Mopar for Canadian Superbike. They pulled out almost immediately, and it makes sense. I mean, the sales went down by Some industries 50%, some industries more than that. If they're not having the sales, they don't have the funds to pay you. They don't have
Right.
this massive cash reserve of millions of dollars. They're just regular people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a really good point here. If you look at what people think of when they see a company name versus what the reality is, they might not have all the money that you think. So, for example, I reference my own company, right? People would reach out, oh, can you sponsor me? Like, well, I don't have
Yeah.
money for that, right? I barely have enough money to operate at this point, let alone fund your program. But they don't know that there's a level of assumption
Right.
that, well, if you have an LLC, if you have an S corp, if you have whatever, if you have a name, that you also have some chunk of money. Same goes with big companies. You can have a big company that makes $1 billion a year and only actually net profit, 1,000.
Small, very small amount. Yeah, like
Yeah. I mean,
Spotify.
that's an extreme case, right? But
Yeah, like Spotify, for example, makes millions of dollars and they're still negative. It's like, how is that
yeah,
possible?
yep. And that's a great example. You got some of these startups or these tech companies. Yeah, they're selling millions of dollars in revenues, but they're in the hole.
Yeah,
And they're funded by essentially sponsors. They've got other investors, angel investors, or whatever it is that's making those companies, giving them the funds to run. So if you reach out to, like you just said, Spotify, hey, I'll put a sticker on my car, bro, and like, sorry, I did a whole episode on sponsor me, bro. That's kind of like that. It's a stereotype, but it does happen.
oh yeah,
Like, oh, I'll run this sticker. All you got to do is give me like 50 grand. It's no big deal to you. Like, well, 50 grand for them, if they give you 50 grand, that could mean if they invested that into their own advertising, they could turn it over into 200 grand of revenue. Are you
right.
going to be able to turn 50 grand into 200 grand of revenue?
Yeah, so what are you
Right.
providing them? Are you providing them TV time, exposure? And so something that I'm doing now that I think will actually help me out for sponsorship is I am now selling the parts that I used. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
out to these companies. Some of them have sponsored me. Some of them are new companies that didn't before. And I'm actually selling their products. So when it comes time to my sales are enough, say, hey, I'm already selling your products. Can you maybe help me out more than just the cost on parts that I already get because I'm a vendor? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
throw me some free parts or maybe a check here and there. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I'm actually making you money now, which is most racers don't have a business that has their name on it that they're selling products out of. Now, when I get back into racing, I'll stand out a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great example. I know of a couple people. I already mentioned Jimmy Moore. Might as well continue on that example. He sold GSP UTV axles for years.
Yeah,
Same thing, right? He ran those axles. He would do well in a race. He'd say, "These are really cool axles. I didn't even break any. This guy went through 45 axles in the race. I went through 0.
yeah,
Let me know if you want some. I will sell them to you." Right? That's that model is pretty attractive. On top of that, I see a lot of, especially early on, even if you're not a racer, right, you can be an influencer in the market. And if you've got a decent social media following, it's odds are somebody's going to say, hey, I'll give you this discount code, right? Post it up on your page and, I'll send you some free product, whatever it may be. The odds
yeah,
are pretty high that's happening. And that's a good way to, people use the discount code, they go and make a purchase. The company can easily verify, how many purchases that your specific discount code made.
right.
It could be, Eric 10% racing off, right? It could be something like that. And they just know who's generating the sales for them.
That way it's trackable. Then they can say, yes, we had 24 sales in the month of July, and it was directly attributed to you.
Right. Right. So that's where I think it's critical that you understand what your exposure is. You sent me your resume over ahead of time and I was able to peek at it
Yeah,
and take a look, which is awesome. It's got like great breakdowns in there. And one of the things that you were showing is in the series that you were racing in, what type of views do they get?
yeah,
Because typically each type of media has a exposure, dollar per exposure, whatever that might be. So if you look at television, you can see how many people watch this. How many times are you physically going to be present on the screen, whether it's an interview or in a pit walkthrough or on the racetrack, and then how often is their logo or whatever it is going to be visible. Then you can start figuring out dollars per exposure. So that's what they're looking for, and they know roughly. And this is some of the bigger companies, right? Some of the smaller companies might not have this level of analytics to work with, but some of the bigger companies, they'll know now if investing in you is of higher value than running a TV ad or running a social media ad.
Yeah. And it's I find it like a catch-22 type of situation where as an amateur, say you're starting out and you're not pro yet. In amateur, there's zero TV. There's four people at the track who aren't racing. It's not a spectator sport there's no grandstands that are filled. So even an amateur season could be easily, like you said, $30,000 or so. You mean your bike, even if you're running a crappy bike, say 5,000-10,000, each event's going to be $2,000. You do a season, 10 events, that's 30,000 right there. And that's no major crashes or totaling of your bike.
Yep.
Assuming that, and no crew. That's just you driving the truck, no plane tickets, just no crew, minimum, just to compete in an amateur novice season or expert, either one. And national season be just further gas money, probably, and maybe an extra day or two for practice here and there. But it's expensive when there's no coverage. So it's like how do you get to the professional level when you don't have the money to do it in the first place, So it's this hard situation where if I had the money, then you get the exposure, but you don't have the money to get the exposure.
Right. Well, and then this kind of goes to one of the questions that you and I had discussed, prior to the interview starting here, is the past, present, and future again of sponsorship. So let's go to the past, how things used to be. Television was king.
Yeah.
No question. And winning, being on the podium was king. You didn't know the bottom tier racers or mid tier racers. You knew who won, and that's what mattered, because if you won, you got the most screen time, you got the interview, right? That was the ticket. You got featured in the magazines, the printed magazines. Things have shifted a little bit nowadays. We'll go pre-COVID. Things are starting to recover, but just kind of pre-COVID to reset how things were up to that point. Social media has really taken that throne. Live videos, live coverage of events, viral videos, your own pages. That really took over a ton. Now, don't get me wrong, in the big programs, television is still just massive. Yeah. Right. If you can get linked to television, it's massive, but it's trending the other way. The virality of social media could make a racer that really is not known or not in a big series, could make them just hop right above. So go on Instagram, right? Look at Jimmy Johnson. He's probably the winningest NASCAR driver in history. Look at his social media compared to Travis Pastrana or Ken Block. Right. They're on completely different tiers. Ken Block and Travis Pastrana can make a boatload of cash off of social media sponsorship alone.
Yeah.
Right. Now, Jimmy Johnson, don't get me wrong, he can figure out ways to make a boatload of cash, but it's this different focus area. And then you see people who, 4x4 Barbie, she's been on my show a few, I don't know, like 5 times, 6 times. She does some racing here and there, and she's not a top tier racer, but she's built such a strong social media platform that sponsors will funnel to her versus that top tier racer.
Yeah.
They know that they're going to get the exposure. So it's changed things up a little bit where you have multiple approaches. It's much harder, I think, because the cost of everything has gone up, the competitiveness of everything has gone up, but you have options now. You don't have to be a top tier racer to drive in top tier sponsors anymore.
Right.
But
But
then you got your
yeah.
social media.
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing a lot of new series pop up from individual people. From
Hmm.
like you're saying, individual riders or teams will hire videographers, and then I actually interviewed a videographer for Moto America, Gray Pham.
Hmm.
Excellent work, and he's doing flat track racing. He's doing Moto America, and he's looking to go over to Europe next year for some filming. But
Hmm.
it's really cool to see that, to see the behind the scenes, to see the trials and tribulations. And with Kyle Wyman on the Ducati, he has a series called Undeterred, and
Okay.
that's great. I love to watch it. They might be, I don't know, 15-minute episodes or so every race weekend, but he's using really expensive cameras, and he does a fantastic job. He's a great editor, and yeah, that is the stuff that drives people and creates fan bases. Uh,
Hmm.
but then again, to do that level of videography, you're probably paying 10 grand an episode. I have no
Oh
idea,
yeah.
man. But
Yeah, it's you're exactly right. And you see people doing this more because, I say social media is becoming king, but it all comes down to content creation.
yeah,
People want to see the things in action, whatever it is. They want to have that connection, and great videography can make it happen. So what you're seeing people do nowadays, like you're saying, is they'll hire a film crew. Well, they'll build it into their sponsorship thing. They'll say, hey, look, I need, let's just say it's 100 grand a year to race. I also want on top of that 10 grand a year or 10 grand per race to do, hire my film crew. um, that's just part of it. And as you see people kind of excel and take it to the next level in those programs, you see their videography improves more and more, and they start getting more professional. And then in some cases, you see the race results might not even follow that, but the sponsorship dollars do,
right,
right? You see just amazing footage come out, and some people get more excited about that
yeah,
than the win or the race,
right,
right? And it's just it's how it is. I have examples of people. Jim Beaver, he's been racing desert for a long time now. You'll see I share a lot of desert examples. That was kind of like,
okay,
I
that's
spent a lot
fine.
of time with desert people. But he did desert for a long time in a trophy truck, which trophy truck is pretty much the top of the line,
Yeah,
most expensive off-road race that you can do. These trucks are $1 million trucks, easy,
yeah,
and they'll do $60,000 to $100,000 in rebuild before and after each race.
yeah,
So it's just top tier, and he raced that for a long time, but then he stepped down into a UTV, right? But UTVs, in terms of popularity, are just through the roof,
okay,
right? So he's immediately signs up with Polaris Razor and starts making these just amazing shows. And he's a podcaster, he's a media producer anyways himself. He's built a whole business around this, but he creates this amazing content. He hasn't placed in a top tier in a race in I don't know how long, but he's one of the most popular people there, and he has a huge social media following and just amazing backing from sponsors. For years, we're talking like 10, 15 years, they'll have the same sponsors.
wow,
And it's really impressive, but he took a whole different approach, right? So with that, like I say, past versus present, you might not have to be a top tier racer to draw in top tier sponsors, but you still got to have the effort. And sometimes the social media and all that other effort can be even harder than the
yeah,
training,
right,
or less fun, right?
yeah,
Especially if you're doing it yourself. If you have a crew and a team that you can eventually bring on board and hire, great, you know.
right.
Um, but yeah, it all comes at a cost, and if you enjoy it though, it's all worth it. So.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's what I live and breathe and sleep. Even though I'm not doing it like today, I've been watching the races from Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They're at Moto America for motorcycles is there at the road course, and my friend John Hawkins is making his pro debut with
Hmm.
Kevin Whaley, a two-wheel Detroit Racing, I think is their team name. I've actually had him on here and interviewed John Hawkins. I think it was maybe one of my first 10 episodes,
Okay.
and he's a super fast guy. He qualified in the top 20 for his first ever race, and I have to watch the rest of it later, so we'll see what happens. But it's just great to
Nice.
come out there, and it's like that's the class that I would be racing in if I was back out there. So it's
Yeah. Yep.
trying to keep tabs on everything. And I haven't been on a bike in a little while, but you give me a couple of track days, give me a few amateur races, I'm sure I'll be back to that race pace. It's just a matter of funds. So
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly. And it's interesting too, depending on what level you're on, or I should say, it doesn't matter what level you're on, you're worried about funds,
yeah,
right?
right.
If you have the grassroots racer that's running just the dirt bike track in their backyard and little events, they're still worried about funds. My brother did motocross for 4 or 5 years, and he had his little 80, and when he was just a kid at the time, he had his little 80, and he was running, and he was, I mean, every build he's like, where am I going to get, even him worried about this as a kid, right? Where am I going to get the money to like do this build? And um was always scrambling and always making it happen. And he eventually stopped racing. That was pretty much the reason why.
Yeah,
It's like, I don't know where I'm going to get my next race bike. I don't know how I'm going to get to the next race.
yeah,
And
and that's
yeah.
why I stopped, and I just hope to be able to sell enough so I can get back into it, because
Mm-hmm.
I haven't given up. I'm just trying a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I spent time with some top tier racers before too. And, they'll talk about the importance of sponsors and also the challenges of sponsors. And most of them would say, if you can self-fund, that's obviously the ideal state.
Yeah,
I think that sponsorship, I obviously did a bunch of shows and talks about it. I think it's a blast because it's about relationship building, it's about businesses, it's about marketing. And I think that's kind of exciting. I always enjoyed working with my sponsors for my show, and interviewing other people who sponsored racers and things like that. But put yourself in the mindset of, if you do want to win, you know, what's the best way to do that? Well, you need the funds, you need to train, you need the focus, and what better way to do that if you're self-funded?
yeah,
Um, it's just incredibly hard. There's very, very few people who are able to do that. And the ones that do are typically, they'll build a business, similar to what you're doing, right? You build a business, and then your business sponsors your race program. So
right.
it's a write-off for your personal business. That's your advertising. And then it's also funding, your sport and your hobby,
Yeah,
and you're promoting yourself at the same time, right? So that's it tends to be where people are the most excited and most successful in the long run, I think, if they can pull out of that or have it diversified. So you have that, and you have three or four other key sponsors that are very supplemental. If any one of them backs out, though, you're fine. Or if all of
sure.
them back out, you're fine. I think that's what you mentioned that before. Some people, they'll lose a key sponsor and they're done.
Right.
And end the
Yeah.
season.
Like
Yep.
there was Triumph North America pulled out of racing completely, and Jason DeSalvo and Elena Myers both lost their rides, and their
Mm-hmm.
grids are extremely tight. There's not extra seats. There aren't just rides anymore. You can't. People used to say, "Oh, he got a ride."
Yeah.
Well, they don't offer rides anymore. That
Yeah.
most people pay to play, and if I could just I would love to be really competitive at the front of the field.
Mm-hmm.
For today, I would just love to be out there and get my stuff,
Right.
just to
Yeah. Just run.
break even and be out there. I would be so ecstatic. It would
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yeah, certainly. So
So
it's a challenge. People make it happen. One of the things I know we were going to talk about is who are some of the people that I think do well at this.
yeah,
And well, obviously I mentioned a couple of really big hitters, right? Travis Pastrana, Ken Block. Um,
those are the big ones everybody thinks of. Those Gymkhana videos, or
right.
he's got 10 of them now or something. Probably more.
Yeah. Let's speak to that for a minute too, because Ken Block, when I ask people, I did this for a very long time, a lot of episodes, I say, who is the best? Who's the person you want to emulate? He comes up a lot. So is Pastrana. Actually, Pastrana was on my show.
That's pretty cool.
It was like the coolest thing ever. I got to do it in person with him, and I mean, I got 2 minutes and 30 seconds with him, but I was like, this is gold.
Yeah,
But either way, they do such a good job at being an entertainer outside of just doing cool stuff. I mean, Pastrana still races. He races everything, and he just finds things. He you could give him a motor home, and he'd find a race circuit, and he'd win the race circuit. But most of what he does is, you know, the content creation, exciting stuff, and the Gymkhana videos, right? If you look at those, how they've progressed over time, he finds something new. Each one of those blows up from a virality standpoint.
Millions.
It's incredible. So, you know, they've definitely got it figured out. But if I look at some of the other folks that, you know, a lot of times when on my audience, my target was people who are trying to get started. Like you're saying, get out on the track, get back out there. I think it's helpful sometimes to look at something that's closer to where you're at, maybe a little bit more attainable, still out of reach, but something you can truly visualize. Where if you talk about someone who is in a, you know, a really high level, like a Ryan Dungey in motocross or something, it's hard to really imagine you being there and trying to figure out the steps to get there. But one person that she's been on my show a few times, and she's one of the more respected people that I follow in the racing world, and that's Sarah Price.
Okay.
So Sarah Price did motocross. She's done stadium trucks. She's done trophy trucks, UTVs. Now she does commercials as a stunt woman.
Yeah.
She does. She just got signed to Chip Ganassi Racing for, I think it's electric UTV.
Wow.
Hopefully I got that right. She's been with a ton of different brands, huge brands, and she just does a phenomenal job. One, she does a great job representing, you know, strong females in the racing world. She is an amazing role model. She's got a great positive attitude. She talks to just about anybody. Yeah. You know, she's been on my show. My show was like, it was this massive show, but she came on it early on and really helped me. I think she was on episode 12.
Okay.
And then she came on later and then later. And but she was helping me out, right? Yeah. Let's just be honest. She was helping me out at that point. She wasn't doing anything for her own brand in terms of getting more exposure. She already had that. And she does a great job with her sponsors. She does facility tours and videos. You know, she's now big enough where she'll have a helicopter at a race.
Yeah.
When they're doing desert races, and create really good content around it. And you know, if you look at her social media, follow her, the things she's doing, she has such a diversification of what she does. She can hop on a dirt bike. She can go and do these stunt commercials, and you're genuinely engaged.
Yeah.
Right. So that is probably the most important thing right now, is that creating genuine engagement. You want to watch somebody win a race. That's fun to watch. And you want to watch good, amazing content. If you can do both,
that's even better. Yeah.
It's even better. So I would recommend, if anybody's, you know, watching this or listening to this in the future, go check out Sarah Price and just take a few notes. What are some of the things she's doing? I challenge you, if you do pay attention to her for a couple of days, I challenge you to ignore her going forward. It'll be tough.
No, I'll search for her. I'll try to find her on Instagram, see if she's on there. And yeah, I've been interviewing this one woman, Anna Rigby, Spade Racing.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very unique character as well. She is not a racer, yet she's a brand ambassador, and she's a very widely known woman in the motorcycling industry. And although she's not the fastest rider out there,
mm-hmm.
She's consistent, and she's like mid-pack, you know, track days. Mm-hmm. And not saying that to dog on her at all. She's a great, like you're saying, she's a great intermediate person between a full-on racer and a pretty good track day person.
Mm-hmm.
But like the average community of street riders knows nothing about the track. She's the best person you can talk to, because if you talk to me, I'm going to scare you into racing. She's going to say, you know, you don't have to race. You can just go to the track and learn how to ride at the track mm-hmm. and get all the right things. So there's people in between that can be good as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And anybody listening right now, if you're not a racer, but you still want to try this whole thing out, right there, as long as you're doing something, you have the potential to take it to the next level and pull a sponsor out of that. I
Yeah.
mean, I do a podcast, right? I ride stuff, I drive stuff, but I am not a racer. I've done little things here and there, but like I am not that person.
Yeah.
And but I can still pull in sponsors. I still have had, I'll turn my camera right. MBRP Power Sports,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They've been my sponsor for years. So I've been running MBRP exhaust on my truck. I've been running it on my snowmobiles, my UTVs. And people will ask me like, "Oh, where'd you get that?" Well, I'm working with MBRP. They're a great company and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, "Oh, what do you like race?" I'm like, "No, I don't.
Right.
But
You don't have
I
to.
like their stuff and I know it's reliable and I know it sounds good and I know it has more power. Like, you want something? I could hook you up. My buddy Jared Heshka, by the way, is the guy that I work with MBRP, but like I can set you up with that and he can talk to you about what you might need for your vehicle. So you do it. It's kind of, people are going to hate me for this, right? The racers watching are like, "Oh man, I'm a big tough," but honestly, what we do in sponsorship and racing isn't much different than what the influencers on Instagram do, right? You
Yeah.
see people like trying to sell scarves that they wear, like, chai lattes, right?
It's a different product.
It's
And
just a
there's
different
nothing wrong
product.
with it. It's just
It's
word
the
of
same
mouth
thing.
advertising, like saying, "Hey, I saw this movie." Well, I haven't gone to the movies in like 7 months, so I can't say.
Right.
I went to this one restaurant and it was great. You should go there. And I'm
Yeah.
not trying to like manipulate you. Maybe I am a little bit because I want you to experience that thing. But
Mhm.
like like selling the products that I use at the track, saying, "Hey, this helped me win the race. I think you should maybe try it too."
Mhm.
It's not a bad thing. It's not dirty.
Right. Well, and honestly, what you just mentioned there is what makes the difference between a strong ambassador and a weak ambassador. If it is not genuine, people will pick up on it
Yeah.
and they don't buy it, right? To an extent, all advertising and marketing is a form of manipulation, right? Sorry folks.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what it is. Sometimes it's for your better, right? For example, I was manipulated into purchasing this specific protein powder that I've been using in my workouts, and it's been phenomenal. Like,
Yeah.
it works really well. It works with my entire ecosystem. Like, I feel like I'm a better person for having it.
Right.
But I got it because I saw an ad, and so I was manipulated to an extent. But I used to ask people on the end of my show, I would say, this is on every episode where I interviewed somebody else. I say, what's one thing we need to take away from this show? Like, what's the most important thing? And I have never actually tallied them all up, but I would say about 60 to 70% of the time they say be genuine, right? Market the products that you really love and that you support and that you really believe in. It doesn't always have to be racing stuff, right? You see these all the time, especially in bigger events. You'll see um, it's called oh shoot, now I
Kind of
almost said it.
industry sponsor.
Yeah, I almost said pandemic. No, it's endemic versus non-endemic, and but my head was thinking COVID for a minute.
Yeah.
So it's basically what it means is, if you're an easier way to remember it is in the industry or not in the industry. So in racing, like a tire,
Yeah.
right, in the industry. If you have, although energy drinks are pretty synonymous with racing right now, they're still outside of the industry. There's typically, in motorsports, there's more money outside of the industry than there is inside of the industry.
Right.
So if you can land, like I mentioned Megan Meyer earlier, she partnered with Menards, just a massive retail store, not part of motorsports typically, right? But that's the market that they wanted to target, was Megan Meyer's following, and it worked out well. But if you look at those two different things, you can target different sponsors, and you might be able to pull in a whole different market segment, more money than into the industry, if you look for brands that aren't normally there.
Yeah.
But you have to like the brand.
Right. You can't
It still
just
has to be genuine.
you can't I'm not I don't carry a purse. I can't go after purses, whatever it is.
Right. Right. Oh, dude, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a great point. Like, would you sit here and say, "Oh, this purse right here, like it's the best." Oh, why is it the best? Oh, trust me.
Gotta go zippers or something.
Yeah, like it's not real. So I've used this example before on my show. These things are getting old and nasty, and I keep showing them. But I could be an Adidas sponsor. I don't know why. I just like Adidas stuff. It looks good. It's comfortable. It's pretty affordable. Like that's how I am. But if I tried to sell you, an Asics brand right now, if I just switched to Asics, I don't know if people would believe me. I've shown the same sandal like 20 times in my shows. They know that that's what I like.
It has to be really compelling, a change or something for us to really get behind that. If we knew you and if we knew your history with that, you had to make a revelation of some sort of change for us. Okay, I get it now. Why?
Right. It's got to be genuine. Now, the benefit to what we were talking about with tires, right? I keep going back to the tire example. If you have a good pair of tires and you're winning, that's proof to people.
Right.
That it's harder. It's harder to sell it any other way. You say, "Oh, well, you want to win? Well, Eric wins all the time." Well, what tire he run? Oh, he runs, these are Michelin tires, right? I think Michelin was one of your previous sponsors. He runs Michelin, so oh, I'm just gonna buy Michelin. I'm not gonna question anymore. And I mean, I've done that before too. I love BF Goodrich tires. You can probably see behind here. Raptor comes stock with BF Goodrich anyways, but I like them. I like BF Goodrich tires. I got BF Goodrich tires on my Ford Focus, right? Like, who does that?
And then you end up liking this brand and it expands. And I want Michelin tires on my bicycle. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the being genuine about these things is incredibly important, and people can tell if you're genuine or not, and they'll call you out on it, right? They'll say, "Oh, well, you're just selling this thing to me," right? Yeah.
Well, I think my takeaway from this is I need to create more content, and I've already started with doing the podcast.
This is content.
I'm trying to do it once a week. That's the goal. I actually have 3. I still have to finish editing right now, so I'm a little bit behind. I haven't posted since early September, but and this will be the 4th one I need to edit. So we're trying to keep it to about an hour or so. But
yeah, I know. One thing that you were going to ask me about too is just podcast tips in general.
Yeah.
And as we're on the topic of content creation, I actually did a show. I think it was episode 200. So if people want to go to sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com, look up episode 200, it talks about tips to create a podcast. So I used a lot of references of what I do or what I did, but it can be pretty easy. But that's a great form of content. I highly recommend any racer out there, doesn't matter what level you're at, have some form of content. It could be, an Instagram live video once a week with no editing, no anything, right? It's just something where you share your story or you have a voice. A lot of people are doing like what you're doing now, which is great. Creating their own platform to talk about what they want to talk about, to promote themselves, promote their brands, promote their guests. And I highly recommend that. But from a podcast standpoint, if you really want to know how to set that up, go to that sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com and look up. I'm 98% confident it's episode 200. Yeah. So I talked through a whole bunch of stuff there.
I've been following a lot of different people like David Goggins and Cameron Haynes, and there's another one, and blanking on his name right now. But basically, Gary Vaynerchuk. Talks about just creating content and stop thinking about, Gary
Vaynerchuk, jab, right hook. This is a good book about social media stuff. It's still relevant.
Yeah. And he had a guest on the other day. He was just talking about, hey, how do I increase my brand? Ask Gary V.
Sorry, I'm done. No more books.
So you know what he's about.
Yep.
And he just says, create content. Don't don't worry about creating film. Just document.
Mm-hmm.
What people want. People want like I should go around my business and just film. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Like I'm shipping an order today. I'm doing inventory. This is what my
Mm-hmm.
building looks like. These are what my tires look like over here. You know, this is my podcast area. This is what I do over.
Mm-hmm.
Just walk through and just document. It doesn't have to be like a perfectly spliced, edited video because I'm not an expert at that anyway. So it's going to take me 7 years to produce it and film it and publish it. You know.
Yeah. Well, while I'm pulling books out, there's another book here. These are some of my favorites behind me. So it's called The Lean Startup.
Okay, yeah.
And this book basically says if you make it perfect, you've waited too long. I think it might even use something more specific or more, maybe it's more ridiculous. It says, if you're not embarrassed by your first product, first release, you waited too long.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're not embarrassed? Like,
I've actually read that one, and I'm a huge proponent. I've said this for years now.
You've read this too.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a big one. But start before you're ready.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times, like I never thought I was going to be a racer. That was not the goal when I got a motorcycle. I even told my parents, I'm not going to be racing it. I'm not going to go fast. I just wanted, I bought a 250, and then I eventually went to the track. And even when I went to the track, my goal was not to race. My goal was just to ride my bike and not get arrested. Just use it the way it's meant to be used.
That's like every motorcycle owner's goal.
I just didn't want to get in trouble for riding my bike the way I wanted to ride it.
Yeah.
And I quickly found out that I was good at it and that I was passing people who were already racing. And I didn't realize then that when you go to the track days, people aren't going 100% all the time. So like, well, I'm way better than this guy. I passed him and he's racing, but maybe he's not going 100%. Like, why would you go 100%?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, it's you know, like I said with my podcast, I accidentally released my first episode, and my intent was to do some tests. I was going to build up a pile, you know, 10 to 15 episodes, which honestly, this might not be too bad of a deal to have a stockpile, so you're not always week to week hitting them. But you know, that was my plan. I don't know when I would have truly released it. But it went out there, and I was like, hey, I might as well keep going. Yeah. And you know, there's so many hiccups and lessons learned that you have along the way. You know, for example, my second episode I did, it was with Jeff Vanestal. He's with topthepodium.com. They do motorsports marketing and sponsorship stuff. And the whole episode we recorded, it was amazing. It was just, I loved it. I was like, this is the best. I'm actually good at this. And the whole file was corrupt. Oh, no. I had an issue with my software. Like it was a mess. So I lost the whole thing, and I had to re-record it with him.
Oh, wow.
Right. And it was so embarrassing. And it was, you know, my second show. It was going to be episode 2. Yeah. And I had to record twice, edit twice. And either way, got it out there, and just kept going. And, you know, I started honing things in after that. I will admit I probably did more editing and, you know, trying to make things perfect than 99% of my listeners would even notice or care for.
Yeah.
But just for that reason, like, people don't care as much as you might think about the little stuff. For example, on this video, right, you know, on the bottom of my screen, it says Landon Wiese, which is my son's
I noticed, yeah.
You know, normally I would have this set up. It'd say Impact Fuel,
okay.
But you know, things change. But nobody's going to care. I mean, I'm pointing it out for the fact that nobody's really going to care that it says that. Right? They're going to care about, you know, what they came to hear in this show and if they get any value out of it. You know, I'm doing a podcast tomorrow, which it's funny. Like I didn't do any shows since May, and then I'm going to do three podcasts, guest appearances over the next few weeks here. I'm doing one tomorrow with the guy. His name's Nate McLean. He does he actually gets sponsors, and he doesn't race or anything. He's just a brand ambassador. He runs sand dunes.
Okay.
And he's got a beautiful truck build. Either way, doing a show with him. It's called Dune Hippie Podcast.
Very
and
cool.
He basically said on his, I think it was episode 3, I think I'm going to be maybe 5 or 6. He's like, yeah, man, someone said, oh, do you want to edit that out? He's like, dude, I don't know how to edit. Like, let's go. Like,
They've
it's
been there.
fine.
Yeah.
And I thought that was hilarious. I'm sitting here, I'm a podcaster, and you'd think like, I'd be like, oh, dude, you got to edit your stuff, man. But like, I don't care. It was kind of funny. I
Yeah.
felt like more connected to him. Like, it's real. I could picture him sitting in his garage, just knocking these things out and getting it out there, and some people will get so spun up about, well, I don't know how to edit.
Yeah.
I don't know how to splice videos. I don't know how to do Facebook Live. I don't know how to do YouTube, and just not do it at all.
Yeah, well, there was about 3 years where I knew that I wanted to do it, but I didn't
Mhm.
do anything for 3 years.
Yeah.
I was scared of what my people think if I say something stupid or stutter of my words or say
Right.
much.
Right. Well, now that's a really good point. I was very fortunate in my show where I didn't get a lot of negativity come through, right? The show was very focused on growth. So I think my audience the people that were drawn to my show were already focused on personal growth, building up themselves, building up others. I didn't get a ton of that.
Yeah,
I didn't get a lot of the haters, right? But everybody interviewed, right? That's one of the things that they talk about, whether it's, on the mic or off the mic, they would talk about the haters. You
yeah,
will get that,
yeah,
right? It is going to happen. I'm not going to say that I never had it, right? It still happened. I remember one person reached out because I mispronounced some word and they made a big deal about it. Like, I
yeah,
don't know, dude, I just mispronounced the word. But that's going to happen. And honestly, it doesn't matter. Some people just do that.
yeah, yeah.
Some people just,
Yeah, there was
it
one
is.
thing I talked about on one of the other episodes, and nobody ever mentioned anything. I was like so worried about this one thing I talked about,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like nobody cares. Just
Right.
do your thing and just keep going. Just
Yeah.
there's so many things. Like you look in the news today, and you see people of power tweeting
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And,
Mm-hmm.
oh no, he said
Yeah.
what?
They said
I'd
that?
be
What?
I'd be
Yeah.
so embarrassed of one of the hundreds of things that he's tweeted.
Right. 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 Well, and actually, I know we're kind of coming up on time here, but there's a few quick points I want to make uh, about that, and then we can close out or do whatever you need to do next. But the when you're representing a brand, I will say you need to be cautious about the topics and the things that you say. In maybe the past 6 months or so, there's been a couple of big names that have lost big sponsors
Oh yeah,
because of some things that they said and did. So what we're talking about, me and you, I just want to make it clear for anybody listening, right? What we're talking about is it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to goof up. It's okay to be unpolished. It's okay to, not have the highest quality content. It's okay to say stuff that's stupid. You're going to get haters, and that's okay. And it's okay to have your opinion too, right? You can say stuff and, upset everybody. And as long as it aligns with your brand, or if you have a sponsor, as long as it aligns with their brand, whatever, do your thing.
yeah,
But, there's a couple of racers that Bubba Wallace, he went off on some rant while he was doing iRacing,
yep,
and he quit. He stopped racing in the middle of the thing. He's like,
yeah,
I'm done. Like he got upset. I don't know what happened. He got wrecked in the fake race,
right.
and the sponsors cut him.
That's
They're like,
harsh. It's very much of like a
it's tough, man.
almost.
Yeah, that's a
Maybe
tough
he
thing.
shouldn't have done that, and they said they don't want quitters, right? But
Right.
I have a sim racer upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
You get into that, you do practice, qualify, race. It's a feature race now, and it can be very frustrating. I just got taken out. I was doing Suzuka in
Mm-hmm.
Japan yesterday with my brother, and some guy came into one of the hard chicanes and just took me out of the race. I was like, well, that's fun,
Right. Right. So
Could it
you
be
look at
easier?
that and you're like, wow, that's scary, right? But he's gonna be fine. He'll figure something else out, right? It's a bump in the road. He'll recover. There's another driver. I can't remember his name now.
We talked about him. Yeah, but I don't. Kyle Busch. I don't know.
Um,
Oh,
Either way, there's another guy. This is very very recently, and maybe we might be thinking of multiple things here. I'm not sure, but he said the N word while
yes.
he was doing a race. Larson, Kyle
Kyle Larson.
Larson. I don't know. I can't remember. But either way, I mean, now that's egregious, right? And that's he should lose his sponsors for that. Different from the Bubba Wallace thing where maybe it's a little bit gray, but he's thinking he was alone. He's thinking, I mean, not alone, but he's thinking that what he's saying doesn't have a consequence, but it did, and it does. And right, gone. And so there's certain things where your behavior needs to be at a certain level. That's what the sponsors expect. But not all of them are expecting just perfect content, right? There's some people who make hilarious content and, completely unpolished, and it's just, it's gold.
Yeah,
right?
there's a famous motocross guy. I'm not sure if he's still racing or not, but I'm blanking on his name. He's like a Coors Light guy. He'll be making these funny videos where he goes off the jump like the wrong way, land the wrong way. But he's a pro. He knows how to do everything. So
right.
It looks like he's a shit show, but he's knows how to do it.
Yeah. No, I completely get it. So it's, the point is what Gary Vee says is go out and do it. If you got an idea for a podcast, just do it. If you want to document, just do it. And maybe it will suck, right? Odds are pretty high that it's going to suck. Let's just be honest, right? The odds are pretty high it's going to suck, and that's okay. I'll tell you, there's another guy that I listen to. Oh, I should say I used to listen to. John Lee Dumas. He does Entrepreneur on Fire. It's a podcast. And one of the things that he talked about is when you produce something and it absolutely sucks and it's no good, right? You just keep coming back and doing it, and let's say you don't, one day you quit. But he made this one reference it stuck with me. He said, my kids in the future are going to be able to go back and listen to my voice right on this show. He's like, man, like, that's amazing. Think about that. I mean, so I just lost my father unexpectedly in August 31st. And no, I appreciate that. But, there's just like kind of a takeaway and lessons learned from that is I don't have a podcast that he did. I can't go and listen to his voice right now. Right.
Yeah.
There's some videos that I have where he's on there. Right. But if I could just sit down and listen to a show of him talking about what he did, I mean, he was an entrepreneur. He built a business, ran it for 23 years. And man, if I could sit here and like listen to his struggles or his thoughts, that'd be phenomenal. And right now my kids can do that. Yeah. Right. Good, bad, indifferent. They can sit and listen to me run my mouth for an hour about motorsports marketing and sponsorship. And that's cool. Like it just lasts. It's just there. It's content.
Yeah. And we don't have that from the past generations. We just have some snippets here and there. And it's like, yeah, those people who are not here anymore, you wish you could just press, the voice record on your phone and listen to their voicemail, or they're talking naturally. How many times do you sit down in front of someone and just talk to them face to face, eating or drinking really anything else for an hour straight? It's very different form of communication. So
yeah, certainly.
It's almost like a moment in time. Like this is frozen in time from this day for this person. 10-10-20 is today.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. I did not notice that. Yeah, I've even gone back and fairly recently went and listened to some of my old shows. Like I've listened to my first ever show probably 5-6 times. And I don't even remember some of it. I don't remember recording it. There's some guests that stood out and I'll never forget. But there's some episodes where I'm like, when did that happen? But I can go and listen to it. I can like relive it if I want to. And that's pretty cool. And my kids can do that. They're young now. They won't care. But when they're older, I guarantee it'll be a cool thing for them to go back and listen to, what Dad used to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's wrap this up. Where can people find you online? I know you talked about that podcast website. Are you on Instagram or social media anywhere?
Yeah, I'm on all those things. Right now I still am running the sponsored RadicalClubPodcast.com. So that's where I'd send people to. It links out to, the Instagram, Facebooks. I'm not actively posting on that anymore, but the content is there. So I still recommend you go there and check it out. Plus, I really want to hit 100,000 downloads. So let's keep downloading it. But if you go there, that's a good start. Or if you go to iTunes, Google Play Music or wherever it's called, Google Podcast now, I think. It's on Spotify. It's on, I think it's everywhere. But go download a couple shows. That's what we're talking about here is sponsorship. And I talked about it for 228 episodes. The content is all still relevant now. So go check it out. And if you do want to message me, you can hit me up on any of the DMs there too. I have toyed with the idea. I've actually built a model around it of being a sponsorship coach to people. It is a paid service. My podcast is free. You can get free 228 episodes of coaching. But if you do want one-on-one stuff, I would consider doing a little bit of that. So I do have a model out there. You can find out about that on the website too.
Very cool. Well, maybe I'll hit you up for some advice, sponsorship coaching myself.
Sounds good, man.
I appreciate it. And like I said, this will probably be posted in the next week or two. I'm not exactly sure when, but it'll be up there, and I'll tag you. And
I'll share it up.
We should be sure to tag everybody we talked about because there's a lot of people we mentioned in here.
Yeah, holy cow. I think I remember most of it. I think you get good at tagging.
Yeah,
you do a little social media stuff. You get pretty good at tagging people. So good deal.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.